Hey y'all, how you doing today? So today's Independence Day is the day that the US of A celebrates the separation between them and England um, becoming America. And so for those of you who celebrate or just enjoying the day off, I ask that you please enjoy yourself with your family, friends, and loved ones. I also ask that you be mindful, watch your surroundings, and be safe out there. There's a lot going on in the world today, in which I'm sure you already know that. It's probably for many of us, it's no different than any other day, right? But just be mindful, be careful, and enjoy, okay? To honor this day, I want to start off by singing the national anthem. So, here we go. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, all the ramparts we watched were so gladly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, it gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave. So that's the course that we normally hear at a lot of our sporting events. And whenever we sing it, most of us know that by heart. But there are three other verses in the national anthem. And one of the verses I want to say is verse 3. There are two lines in it that's a little concerning. So I'm going to read those for you and we're going to talk about it a little bit, okay? No refuge could save the heroine and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave. Now, these two lines, it's easy for us to look past it and, assume that it really has no significance. But let's be clear. The reason why this is significant is because the man who originally wrote this poem was a man who owned slaves. And he was against the abolishment of slavery. Okay. And this man saw the war happening and he noticed that there were black soldiers. Okay, they were called the was it Colonel Marines, I want to say. They were fighting on the British side. Okay, these are men who had escaped their enslavement and they were fighting for their freedom. Okay, now of course they didn't have to get on the line to fight for their freedoms, but that just shows you the character of the black man, of our black people, of our African Americans, or our original Africans who were brought from Africa to be enslaved in the US of A. Though they didn't have to fight, it was not their fight, but they did fight because their freedom was important. They didn't wait for somebody else to do it for them. They did it for themselves. But because of that, these two lines were put in that poem. And it really means that it was a threat, obviously, but I would consider it more of a promise because after this war, we had what they call Reconstruction. Now, again, the person, just so you have the details, the person who wrote this poem, okay, his name was Francis Scott Keys. Okay, now, after the war, the 13th Amendment was passed. And within that 13th Amendment, well, actually, it was 13th, 14th, and 15th that relates to us, okay? But within those amendments became the Reconstruction period. Now, that Reconstruction period, I'm going to give you the dates, was from 1865 to 1876. Now, even though the 13th Amendment had freed slaves, okay, unfortunately, we weren't aware of our freedom until June 19th, 1865, which was a whole 2 years later after um, we were freed. Okay. Now, between that 1865 and 1876, which was the Reconstruction period, there were over 2,000 documented lynchings in that period. Okay. From 1877 to 1950, it was over 4,400 documented lynchings. And I say documented like that because, unfortunately, we don't know how many people were killed. We don't. But between that Reconstruction period, there were, they called them riots, but they weren't really riots. They were massacres. They were massacring so many of our ancestors for absolutely nothing, just for being free. Okay. So, it kind of, when I think about this, right, I think about being in an abusive relationship. The truth of the matter, in abusive relationships, the statistics say that the most dangerous time within the abuse is when you're trying to leave. Okay. In leaving, 45% do not make it out alive. 45% of the women in abusive relationships perish by their partners. Now, when you put that into perspective and you think about the America we live in, okay, and you think about these numbers of over 2,000 people in a 10 to 12 year period were lynched, documented lynching, meaning there were others who were not documented that we don't know about. So it's probably up with more than like probably up to 5,000, just to be honest. But this was all because people had the audacity to be free and to try their best to work on their freedom and to take advantage of that freedom and to work for themselves and to pick themselves up by their bootstraps. Okay. So this leads to the conversation I want to have today, which is white rage. Now, white rage, which is coined by a lovely lady named Carol Anderson, she coined this to describe the systemic, often covert, ways white people react to an attempt to undermine the advancement of African Americans. Okay. And it's a complex system, right? It is very calculated. It's a calculated response. And it normally happens through policy, legislation, and institutional structures. Now, African Americans specifically, okay, we know about the systems because racism itself is an institutionalized system. Okay, it is a structure. It is not just one person not liking black people because they're black. Okay, it is a system set up to oppress black people. Okay, racism, that's exactly what it is. But I'm putting it in the concept of white rage because if I look at the timeline from 1865 to 1876, or if you want to get more technical about it, if I go 1865 to the mid 1960s, or let's just say 1965, which is a whole century, a whole 100 years, 1865 to 1965. Black people were murdered, they were burned, they were hung from trees, not for anything that they did, but just for simply existing. Now, I say that 100-year period because we already know that there is lynching happening to us right now. Now, let's be clear. There are people out there still being lynched. It's just not being televised, okay? And when I say lynching, I'm talking about in every aspect, but there are literally people hanging from trees now, okay? The last one I heard about was a truck driver that they said committed suicide, and that is not what happened. There was no reason for this man to commit suicide, especially by lynching himself. That you don't climb a tree and get up there to lynch it. I mean, that's just not normal. Okay, there are so many different ways to do it and easier ways to kill yourself if you're gonna do that. I'm not saying that you should, but anyway, there are lynchings that are happening right now. But we, as African Americans, we face the same horrific conditions even today. Now, no, they're not coming into our houses, into our neighborhoods and burning them down. What they're doing is creating such neighborhoods where the conditions are so terrible that people are sick. They're killing us through different medical conditions. They're killing us through stress. They're killing us through trauma. Okay. We're still going through a lot of these things. And I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe it is back related to the white rage. And that white rage, I believe, is fueled by the fact that they no longer had that 250 years of free labor. They had literally 250 years of us working for free. That was documented, by the way. That was documented. I'm sure it's more than that. But 250 years of free labor, 250 years of being able to build your wealth, 250 years where Black people were no more than property. In fact, and I believe, unfortunately, it is still the same today. And it's unfortunate to say this, but I'm just going to say it because the conditions are very similar. Okay. Black people were considered to be three-fifths of a person for tax purposes for their masters. Okay. Their masters wanted to be able to put them on tax, get a tax break. Okay. So they were like, okay, well, they're property, so we can't say that they're a person, right? So we're going to give them three-fifths of a person. Okay. And to this day, we are still treated like we're three-fifths of a person. Now, here's the thing. There's a new one came out called white fragility, right? When I looked that up, it is the discomfort, defensiveness experienced by white people when confronted by information related to injustice and inequality. My thing is this: in order for you to be defensive, in order for you to be uncomfortable, and start to say that we're race baiting or whatever, you know what's happening. You know that you are in a system of privilege only because of the constructs that were put in place while people were being oppressed, while people were considered to be three-fifths of a person. And you don't want to give up that. Now, here's the thing. You the hierarchy that was created, all right, was basically created during slavery, again, because we weren't considered to be a person, but definitely during the Reconstruction, the fighting and everything was really about freeing the people. Because here's the thing: in Reconstruction, the plan was, okay, and this was the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment. It was to abolish slavery, grant citizenship and equal protections under the law, and to prohibit voting discrimination based on race. Many of the massacres that they call riots, they were not riots, they were massacres. Many of them were because people were going to vote. Many of them were because people were just outside. Many of them were because people went in court and said, well, hey, my family is being harassed. Many families were killed and strung up in trees because of this. And this was during the Reconstruction period. Okay. Now that lets me know, one, there are sayings that Black people are lazy. We know that's not true. Black people know that's not true. African Americans know that's not true. We are a people that are strong. We're vigilant. We're relentless. We strive heavily, no matter what we're doing. If we are in the courtroom, we will represent you with vigor. Okay? If we are, like in my case, a therapist, we're going to go in for you, advocating hard for you. We're going to make sure that we think through how to support you and how to make sure you can stand on your own. If we out there selling drugs, okay, we're going to do that thing. It's going to be like a complete business, okay? Because we are a people that create. We are a people that are hardworking. We are a people that know how to, what's the word I'm looking for? We know how to work together, even though people say all the time we don't, but we really do. We know how to work together. We are kind-hearted people. We are people that's like, hey, I know this plant. Let me tell you about it. We are people that bring others in, teach them things. Like, for instance, we were the people who taught other nationalities how to take a bath, how to wash thoroughly, right? Because we are about knowledge. We are about kindness. We are about, if the lowest person is not okay, then the rest of us is not okay. We understand that we're only as strong as the least of us. Okay. And I don't know if that's something that came from Africa or if that's just something embedded in us that we learned over time. I don't know. But we work from those spaces. We like to share. We want to see everybody be okay. We're not a selfish people. Even when we went into the voting booth last year in November, we weren't thinking just of ourselves. No, it wasn't just because she was Black. Yeah, it was a plus. Like, ooh, goody. But this woman was more than qualified. And she already had a good relationship with things. She already knew what needed to be done. And she could complete some of the things that were happening already that could help everyone. But people don't see it the way that we do. Unfortunately, what we all learned in November, which is the reason why a lot of us are taking a back seat. What we learned is people are thinking only of themselves. And as people, Black people, we can't do that because we already know, there's been a lot of stuff, online saying, well, hey, you might want to do this, you might want to do that because you're going to be next, you're going to be next. We were always next. We have always been the first in line. What we were trying to do was save you. We were already going to get it. What do you mean? And the audacity of that is so funny to me because I'm sitting here and I'm when I'm seeing it, I'm like, they really don't understand. We weren't voting for ourselves. We were voting for you because we understand. Okay. But when it all boils down, if you think about that 100 years of terror, if you think about even the terror that we have now, if you think about what just passed in our government right now, okay, what you will learn is, one, we are still in the same shoe. Two, the system that is taking place right now is the exact same system that took place from 1865 to 1965. If you think about even after that, right? And you think about all of our leaders that were murdered, okay? And then you also think about those who, like, I think about the Black Panther Party, right? They were a group of strong black men and women who decided our children matter, who decided, that single parent over there, or that family over there really needs some help. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to get out here and we're going to do A, B, and C. And they were out there. They were helping. They were feeding children. They were helping with homework. They were literally patrolling our communities to make sure that we were safe. And they were a threat. Not just because they were patrolling, not just because they weren't letting in things or letting our community dismantle itself, right? But it was because they were organized. It was because you can see the intelligence within the group. And that is really the fear. We talked about fear before. There is a real fear within white people, unfortunately, as it relates to black people. And their biggest weapon is to continue to suppress, whether that be through destroying communities like they did before and putting them underwater, bombing them, burning them down, whether it be continuously harassing and gunning down us in the street or hanging us from trees. Whatever it is that they feel like they could do to ensure that they continue to be at the top of the hierarchy, they will do that as long as they can stay. Because even with the Jim Crow that I didn't bring up, that was from 1877 into the mid 60s, even with that, everything that was done was to suppress us, either suppress our vote, suppress our voices, suppress our ability to rise in spite of them. And I do feel like a lot of this is from jealousy, because here's the thing: our people weren't. They were speaking a whole nother language somewhere else. They were forbidden at some points not to read. They were not supposed to be able to read. It was illegal during Jim Crow. They were not supposed to read. But yet, they had to take a reading test in order to vote. You see where that's going? So, right now, on this Independence Day, I want to say to my white brothers and sisters, you don't have to give up power to share it. Just because a group of people are rising, like our Spanish community, Spanish brothers and sisters are, does not mean that they take anything from you. We can all be happy here. We can all come together and make this space, this whole place, a very beautiful place to live. We can work together to make sure that the crops work, and that families are supported, and that, we all have some form of expertise. God gave all of us a gift, okay? We could work together instead of consistently trying to make sure we're on top. Think about this. If you have to knock somebody down or pull somebody down in order to feel superior, is that not saying that you're not superior? If you are superior, you don't have to do all that. Let's stop this. Let's work together. Let's work on our strengths and make this place really the place that we've been claiming it's been all this time. And let's make things right with our black people and with our brown people. Because let's be real. We all come from the same place. And even in that lovely Bible that you love to quote from, because you're so Christian, it says in Malachi 2nd chapter 10th verse, it says, do we not all have one Father? Did not one God create us? One. Why do we profane the covenant of our ancestors by being unfaithful to one another? If you claim to love God and specifically claim to be Christian, that verse should speak to you. And one more thing, because I know you know this to be a truth, and if you don't, it's just because you want to deny the truth. We all came from Africa. We're all one people We are all part of the same seed, the same family. So you're literally fighting your own brothers and sisters, putting down your own brothers and sisters because of what? Jealousy, greed. Is it worth it? Because at the end of the day, things come around. I want y'all to be mindful of that now. All right. That's all. Y'all be careful. Enjoy yourself, okay? Bye.